Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Today we have Peter Schroeder, who is an accomplished DJ, entrepreneur, and tech pioneer. Peter, previously known as DJ Pete Fox, was a well-known DJ for 10 years at the top of his profession. Peter retired as a DJ because music was a form of communication and he wanted to help more people in a different way. Peter founded Telzio in 2013, which is a cloud phone system solution for all size businesses. Peter is originally from Denmark, but is currently based in LA. If you are enjoying this content, please do subscribe to any of the podcast apps, and then you won't miss an episode. And if you can go to my website, which is www.businessgrowthtalks.com. Hello, Peter. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I am really good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, this is quite an eclectic background. I think you are the first DJ that I've had on my show. I've had podcasters, I've had YouTubers, but I think this is the first DJ. So I'm really excited to hear about that, and also to hear about Telzio and how you've grown that. So really looking forward to it. Thank you for joining. The first question I ask all of my guests is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
I think it's really just about having that in the back of your mind. Can this actually be sold? That's really what it boils down to. Can I sell whatever it is that I'm tinkling with here? Because I think most entrepreneurs are not really just doing it for the money. It's because they're really interested in whatever it is that they're working on, what they're building. And a lot of people are that. That can be a hobby. But if you have that, can I actually profit from this? Is there some kind of angle? And always think about that as you grow your business. That's the business mindset to me.
Yeah, sales absolutely is the most important thing in business. If you don't have sales, you don't have a business. You have a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. That's what, if you really are just to sum it down, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
I think my parents being musicians and my mother being an engineer at the same time, and also my grandfather being a telephone technician. I think those things are just, I was around technology and music my whole childhood, and that's who I am today.
And how did your mother balance being an engineer and being a musician? Was the musician part more of a part-time thing? How did she balance both of them?
No, she had an old school father. My grandfather told her, you need to go get a real job. She was actually, when she was 16, she was invited to play the lead pianist at the local symphony orchestra where she grew up. Literally like something people wait years, like their whole life for getting that job. It's a paid job. But he was like, no, you need to go get a real education. So she left that, and she was obviously still good at playing the piano, but yeah, she never pursued it.
Oh, so that's quite sad that she wasn't, in a way, she wasn't allowed to be able to express her passion.
Yeah, and I think that's why she was so supportive of everything I did as a kid. Yeah, she was just a really good supporter. She tried to set boundaries in terms of not letting things get out of hand, but at the same time, really good at supporting me.
Ah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I think one of the things that I was, my listeners will know this, but you may not. I was in corporate for 13 years and left about 4 years ago now, and I was doing the podcast anyway, but started businesses. And I was having this conversation with my wife a couple of days ago. The freedom that I have as a business owner is hugely different to having to clock in at 9 till 5. And in my job in the corporate, I was actually doing 8 till 8. So I had no time available for the kids, for my wife, for other passions that I have. And I really feel that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. And I respect people that like the security of employment. And I would never criticize anyone for that choice. I just think that for me, it's been a very freeing experience, and being available more for my kids and being flexible with my timings. That's one of the reasons that I
Yeah.
absolutely love entrepreneurship. Is it the same for you? Have you like,
Oh,
because you've always
yeah.
been expressive in being a DJ as well, but how do you deal with the freedom side?
No, there's no doubt. That is the main thing. I forget who it was that said entrepreneurs are the only one who's willing to work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week. And it's so accurate what you're saying. The freedom is in the back of your head. It's the stuff that just the ability to run an errand, even though you don't because you're working all the time. But it is that freedom. And I think if you were to really make it black and white and make it a little extreme, that is what prison is all about taking away. So I think there's definitely something to that.
Mm. And I love the fact that there's a place that we've got about 5-minute drive, 10-minute drive. And I go and do the errands, and I just go and pick a few bits up and things like that. And there's a coffee shop there. And I went in there a couple of days ago, and I was like, God, you're here every day. Oh, I only do weekdays because I don't want to work at the weekends because it is chaos. It is so busy, and there's so many people wanting coffee that are doing their shopping and doing their bits, their errands. I was like, God, that is so nice that I walk in 9 o'clock when they open, and it's nice and calm. I don't have the children and the families running around. It really is. It's been a great, enjoyable experience. And I don't think I could go back to doing corporate stuff these days.
No. I think my mom always used to say to me when I was a kid, don't think any less of the guy that works in a factory who sits there and all day doing the same repetitive motion. There's some bliss in that. That's for someone. There's people that actually enjoy that. When they're off work, they're off. They're not thinking about work. And that's definitely for someone. It's not for me at all. I couldn't do that. But I have the exact opposite. There's people are different. And you got to always remember that in all parts of life, really.
And you got to embrace people for what they want and what their aspirations are. Let's get into your DJing. So you had an influential mother who was into music, but when did you start getting into DJing and thinking that you might be able to have some sort of career in this?
Oh, third grade, I think. I saw a mobile discotheque thing at a school party, some school ball or something like that. And I was like, that is so cool how that guy can play music and people just go crazy just by putting some records on. People are having a great time because of what he's doing up there. And that's what I saw. And I was just, okay, this is what I want to do. And I started playing at my friends' birthday parties with 2 ghetto blasters and some cassette tapes. And that's really how it started. Eventually, I got it old enough to get bar gigs and club gigs and stuff like that. But it started that early. I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old.
And were your musical influences from present at the time, or was it inspired by music? Were you using samples from older music?
Early on, it was really just whatever I had available. Eventually, it was like the newest things. Denmark and electronic music was a big thing in the 90s, so still is. But that was definitely the biggest influence back then. And also when I started actually making music, I found out, I have a computer and I can actually produce stuff, and it would sound somewhat, or I thought it would sound somewhat what you would buy. So that was electronic music for sure in the first many years. It wasn't until later I started making pop and other genres.
And who was your inspiration for DJ?
Oh, that's a good question. I think so. The interesting thing is, for me, it's never been really about having an idol or want to be like someone else or be like a famous DJ or something like that. That's never been my goal. It's always been, I wanted to play at bigger clubs and cooler parties because it's just fun. But for me, it's all about seeing people, how they react to what you play, and being able to give someone a really good experience or give them a good night just by playing some songs for them. That's what it's about for me. It's like the same as if you're hosting a dinner party and you're making some good foods and you're having some friends over and they're having a good night. It's the same feeling, and that's what it's about for me. That's what it's about. When I started out, there wasn't any famous DJs. It wasn't like a thing. It wasn't until, maybe 10, 15 years ago that actually started becoming a thing.
Yeah. What was your highlight as being a DJ?
Oh, there's been so many. They all blur together. I think the highlights were probably also the worst part of it. I, in 2012, 12-ish, played around, I think it was 383 or 84 gigs in a year, in 12 months. And that burned me out completely. Most times it is 2 or 3 gigs in a day, and then you have a couple of days in the beginning of the week where you travel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was sort of burned out by it. But at the same time, that's also when I played some of the biggest gigs. I played for a couple 100,000 people. And I played, I think one of the very last gigs I ever played was in Hawaii, where I played a late morning, like a 6 a.m. gig at a festival, an outdoor festival, where the sun was coming out over a cliff in the back, and there's 10,000 people in front of the station just watching the sunrise as I was playing some music. That was just amazing. Yeah.
Did you ever play Ibiza?
I did, yeah. Been there quite a few times. It was back in the late 2010s, so I would say like 26, 7, or 8, and that's when Ibiza had a little bit of a downturn. I think it's gotten bigger again now, but it had a little bit of a downturn in the late 2010s.
Yeah, it's iconic, isn't it, for a DJ to be able to play there. For me, music is bands, but when I went to university, I was exposed to a lot of different experiences, and one of the things was that we used to have quite popular DJs. I was in Leicester, which is the middle of England, but it had a very thriving music scene, both bands as well as drum and bass, as well as electronic music and trance and stuff like that. So it was a very interesting arena. I never got to it, but it was definitely on the sort of bucket list of things to do. But it's do you think the music scene has changed for DJs in the last sort of 10 years?
Oh yeah, I obviously still have a bunch of friends who are still in that industry. Most of my closest friends are. And I can definitely tell it's changed. I got out, is how I usually put it. I played my last gig 10 years ago, my last professional gig. And I got out right before things really changed. And now it's more about how many followers you have on social media rather than whether or not you're a good DJ. And a lot of the DJs who have a lot of followers are popular because they have released a couple of songs, and they're typically not even DJs. They're just artists that are good at producing or writing songs and have had a couple of hits. And then the only way to really perform that and make money off of that, because that's really where the money is in the music industry, is not really by selling music anymore. And the only way to do that is by performing as a DJ. And then they have to become DJs, and they're not. I'm a little tired of that whole change, and I'm happy I'm not part of that race.
Okay, I understand. So what was it like? You set up your own music label, and on the research I did, you were working with other DJs, helping them. What was it like, that transition from being the talent to being the boss? How was that as a transition for you?
So I think, if you're really to put it, there's not really a big transition, because as a DJ you are your own boss. You're an entrepreneur. At least if you want to become good and get the good gigs, you have to be your own marketer, social media manager. You have to be your business manager and a booking agent oftentimes, until you get big enough to have that. So you have to have that business mindset to really make it as a DJ, because there's not really anyone to do that for you. You don't have any business partners. And I had a conversation with one of my friends recently about that, and we were talking about why is it that there are so many of our old DJ colleagues that are in really big positions. He had just gotten out of as a interim CMO for TeamViewer. It was a really big company, and one of the other guys is the former director of sales from Telenor, which is one of the biggest phone service providers in the world. And a lot of them end up in those positions. I think it's really because you really early on learn about business and how to run a business. And so starting a record label for me was just a logical thing, because I had a band and we were touring and releasing music, and I had released some records in my own name as well. And I was seeing what the record labels were doing, and I was like, I can do that, and why are they taking half of the profit from something that's doable? I have time during the week to do it. So I figured, let me do that. And I have a bunch of friends in the music industry at that point, so I can probably sign some. And I did. And all of a sudden, I had a record label.
So when did you realize, I know date-wise it was around 2013, but when did you realize that you wanted something different, go along a different path?
This is actually interesting, because I don't think I realized that until I was already there. When in trying to get my dates right, in 2012, I had just told my agent that I need to cool off for a second on the gigs. I need to take a little break and make some new music. I played pretty much nonstop for a year at that point, and One thing I was burning out, but I also needed to make new music. You need to stay relevant, and I'm not able to just sit on a laptop on a plane and make music like some of my colleagues are. I'm really envy of those. I need to be neatly, tidy studio, perfect mindset, and I have raging ADD, so I need to control that in order to get something done. So I told her to cool off on that, and while I was just at home and was supposed to be making music, I started coding on a project. It was really just like something also for the music industry, like a platform to share music between artists and record labels and radio stations and DJs, so promotion. And I needed a phone system for that. I needed like a support line for that, and I couldn't find anything out of the box. So I was like, okay, I'll just code that myself. And I made a little UI for it. And then I just got bit by that. It was so interesting, so much fun to be able to write code, and then all of a sudden a phone would ring, a physical one, like right next to you, and there's just something to it. So I kept working on that. And at that time, I just met my now wife, and she was visiting me. She's from LA, but she was visiting me in Denmark. And we were like, there's probably something here. Let's try and just put it online and see if someone wants to sign up and become a customer. And we did. And all of a sudden, I moved to LA and we launched it. And all of a sudden, we had customers. And 2-3 years later, I was like, okay, I had actually never gotten back to DJing. I was supposed to go to LA and DJ. I was already playing a lot in the US. So I was already planning on coming to the US at that time. But I ended up not doing that, and just instead, now we have Telzio, and we've been doing this for 10 years.
Amazing. What's your appetite of risk, your risk tolerance?
All in, all or nothing. And obviously that doesn't always work out. I've been evicted a couple of times from apartments in my early 20s because I was all or nothing. I do something and I want to do it right. I want to be the best no matter what I do, and I put everything into it. When we started Telzio, we had nothing. I think I came to the US with a couple of $1,000s in my bank account, and we cashed in my wife's 401k, $14,000, and thought, hey, let's build a phone company and compete against AT&T and Verizon. That sounds logical, right? Yeah, it was absolutely bonkers, but I think that nativity and stubbornness that we have is probably why it's succeeded.
Amazing. Now, something that I was looking at when I was doing my research on you was that you'd survived a plane crash. Before we go into more details about Telzio, so what's the story? Where were you? How? It sounds very dramatic. Tell me the story.
So I was going, it was a commuter turboprop from Copenhagen to Aalborg in Denmark. I was going up to visit my parents. And on the way up there, before landing, turns out that they couldn't lock the landing gear in place. They couldn't get the light to light up that said it was locked. Right. They say, okay, we need to circle around for a little bit and burn the fuel because I guess the plane wasn't big enough to be able to dump it.
Okay.
So we were up there for an hour and a half, I think. And I think I called home actually and said, hey, I'm going to be a little late. Something's going on up here. And there wasn't that many people on the plane, so they moved us to each end of the cabin. And because they said, I think we were told this afterwards, but the reason why was really that they knew that if something went wrong, the propeller could essentially come through the fuselage if it breaks off. And it did, actually. We ended up landing, and they couldn't lock it in place. It wasn't locked in place, so it tilted down on one side and went out on the grass, and the propeller went through, and it was chaos for a few seconds. And then, luckily, no one really got hurt. I think one lady broke her arm or something, but that was really it. And then I forgot about it. It wasn't until maybe a year ago or two that we were talking about something, a couple of friends tonight. I was like, wait a minute, I was on that plane. And so I should probably talk to some professional about that, because I
was going to say, were you traumatized? I'm not going to be your therapist, but were you traumatized by it?
I don't think so, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was just not that significant for me because everything was fine, and yeah, it was a little rough, but it wasn't that scary, and the cabin crew and the pilots were so calm about it. It was just like no big deal. And a week before, that's the backstory, a week before that happened, another exactly the same model plane had the same issue, but landed fine in Copenhagen. So we were just like, okay, yeah, that's just an issue they have with that model. We were going to be fine. So there wasn't really any, as we were waiting, we weren't panicked or anything like that. It was just like, okay, let's just wait until, and then we'll land and we'll be a little late. And then afterwards, I don't know, they were just very professional and about everything. So I really never thought that much of it.
And what airline were you on?
On what, sorry?
What airline? What company were you on?
That was Scandinavian Airlines, SAS.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's actually a video on YouTube from the crash, because they had time to get press out there. It was, yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. So we've gone through why you started Telzio, and we know what it does. So as a sort of software tech company, often lots of people, their first port of call is getting investment, getting either seed funding or angel investors but you said you ended up with what, $15,000 from a
Yeah.
starting point or whatever it was. So did you bootstrap the business?
Yeah, so we thought that getting VC money from Silicon Valley is how you do it. Thus, coming into this is what you hear, right? This is what
Yeah.
everyone tells you. That's
Yeah.
the only thing you hear about, and that's what we thought we had to do. Luckily for us, we couldn't get those investments. Again, it was who thinks you can go into a highly regulated market and compete against some of the biggest companies on earth with billions of dollars in marketing and do that. And on top of it, you're a boyfriend girlfriend couple. Okay, yeah, we're gonna invest in that. No, we tried. We got a little bit of friends and family money in the beginning, less than 200,000, and that was able to get us the first couple of employees. But that was it. That was all we started with. And then we tried to secure that funding for maybe the first 2 or 3 years until we realized that that's a different business. That's if you're doing the VC route, if that's what you're doing and really going for that, then you're in the business of raising money. That's a whole different ballgame. And that's just not us. That's not what we're interested in. We're not trying to raise money. We're not like wanting to do it. We're just like we're interested in what we're building and what the product is and want to develop that. So we essentially just kept coding and building the product and trying to add features. And every time we added another little feature, then a bigger client would sign up and they would have a request and we would add another feature and then a bigger client. And all of a sudden, Facebook signed up, Airbnb, Google, Samsung, and so on. So going from like having a small startup-oriented product where we had 3 or 4 features and that was it, and the customers were like 2 or 3 employees, going from that and then all of a sudden having these big multinational corporations as your customers was really just something that happened gradually and happened because we just reinvested everything over the years into hiring more and more people and getting stuff done.
So how are you marketing? Because I'm just thinking you're going against AT&T, all the big boys in the US. So I'm interested, what was the marketing strategies that you gradually built your business into Facebook and all the other clients, Samsung and whatever? What was the marketing strategy for you?
That's rough, right? The thing is, for our business, it's a cloud-based service, right? So people go online and sign up and manage it online. For a business like that, we need to be available online. It's hard to go out and sell something. It's only B2B. So it's how to call someone and say, hey, do you want to buy a phone system? It's like calling someone and say, hey, do you want to buy a house? You need to be there when they're looking for it. And the main place where people look is obviously Google and reviews and these kind of things. And to buy ads on those keywords is extremely expensive. It's $500-$600 per click. And the thing is, the math does add up because a customer typically stays for a long time, and the monthly, depending on the size of the business, the monthly MRR, the recurring revenue, is pretty high, and the margins are good. So the math does add up, but you have to have a huge upfront investment to do that, many millions. So we had to be really smart about it. We had to figure out, okay, then what can we do? And for us, it was really just about, let's get good at SEO. Let's make sure that we get those placements for free. So we spent 10 years doing SEO and really getting good at it, down to not just the content, but the whole technical aspects and everything around SEO. And we nailed it. Now, if you go and search for something like phone menu or call queue, we are on the first page on Google and we get those clicks for free where the other ones pay $500-$600 per click. And that's really how we did it. We never, ever paid $1 for advertising in our company. It's always been about SEO and a little bit of PR here and there and stuff, but it's not been anything significant. We have tried things and experimented, but the thing that really has paid off and still keeps paying off for us is just SEO and of course word of mouth, happy customers.
So let's break down SEO. So all of my listeners will know what SEO is and how to build up your clicks on Google. As a it's a long-term strategy, as you just described. It's like you pay the ads, you shortcut to the top. Some people like the ads, sponsored ads. Some people don't, and they just look for the first on SEO. How did you, as with your mind and the way that you approach things, how did you build up that you're now at the top of the list for SEO?
Yeah, so like you say, it is a long-term strategy. It's not something that just happens from one day to another. 10 years it's taken. I would say from you start doing it, you shouldn't expect any results for another half year, really, until you start seeing anything like significant. But at the same time, when we make a change to any of our sites or anything like that, we see an instant uptick in traffic typically. So once you are going, it's a big train. Once it's up to speed, it's going, and you're starting to get free traffic constantly. We get a lot of traffic on our website. But yeah, how did we do it? So it's really about, there's a lot of aspects to it. I think main thing is obviously content, and Google is very clear about this. There's a blog on Google's website where they tell you exactly what you need to do, and you just have to follow it. They literally tell you what you need to do, step-by-step guide. And it's really about creating value for the visitor. That's what Google wants. So Google, when you search for something, Google wants to give you what you're looking for right away. Mm-hmm. That's how Google is the best search engine, and that's how they keep their customers coming back to Google. So for them, it's about finding those websites that have the content that people are looking for. And how do you do that? You write genuine content or you create genuine content. That being, in the beginning for us, it was blogging, and then moved on to different other things. But you create a website that has that content that people are looking for. You can't.
Okay, but the keywords that you were using, were you searching on Google? What are the keywords for those blogs and for that content that you were providing? Were you going in and seeing what those keywords and then adding that to your website that way?
Yeah, so again, Google tells you what to do. They have a keywords research tool that you can go in and use for free, where you can literally research what are the keywords I should be looking at, what in my industry, and what are the ones that are mostly searched for, which ones are the highest value, which ones are the lowest value, where are the low-hanging fruits. Because it might not be a good idea to go after the big keywords, like, for example, business phone system is a keyword we never went for. It's just more compatible than the ones that we are like a little bit more industry specific or feature specific that we're going for. So use that tool, and then you incorporate that content or those keywords into your content. So make sure that those words are in the content you create, so that Google can pick it up. But Google is really smart now. It has evolved over the years, and like I said, you can't fake it. You can't just write the same keyword a lot of times. They know the semantics of what you're writing. They know the content. They know on a deeper level what it is that the page is about. So it's not as much about just hammering in the same keyword over and over as it was in the beginning, or 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago. Today, it's really more about you make sure that the content and the semantic or the general topic is covered.
And so for people that are listening that are looking to do this, is it better to release 50 blogs on one day, or is it better to release a blog every day for 50 days?
You need to be consistent. So every day for 50 days is definitely better, but you also need to keep it up to date. So if you release blog posts and you just leave them there, eventually they'll go stale. People want fresh content. So you need to go back and revisit your old content and update it, and make sure that you tell Google that it's been updated. There's technical ways of doing that. And keep your page up to date. So we do that regularly. We go back and revisit old blog posts from 2015 and 16. And during COVID, that was actually what saved us, because we had a blog post that we'd written in 2016 that was, I think the title was something like How to Set Up a Hotline. And there were a lot of hotlines. That one was the number one on Google when you search for how to set up a hotline. There were so many hotlines being set up for COVID. Schools, cities, and all kinds of hospitals, like all wanted hotlines for people to call. And we just had a blog post that told you how to do it. And of course, that blog post was on our website. And at the end, we say, hey, we can help you do it. But that way, it was crazy. From one day to another, we just, we had to hire 20 more people just to keep up.
Amazing. That's incredible. What's your USP?
That's a good question.
That's what I'm here for.
I never thought about it.
Is it business focused? Are you looking, like you said, you've got the bigger clients, but do you still look for medium-sized businesses as well? Is it, what's the attraction? I get the SEO and I get that people come and then they find you and they say, oh, actually, that would really help my business. And the thing that I love about Google ads versus Facebook ads is people are intentional that they are looking for something on Google, where on Facebook ads, yes, they're much cheaper, but you scroll, and sometimes you never see the ad. So that's one reason why I love Google ads much more than Facebook ads. But there's got to be something that you position yourself in the market.
Well, we obviously have our ideal customer, and we have a target that we generate our content around and target towards, and the small businesses, 50 to 200 employees size. That's a target. But the interesting thing about our product is it scales really well. We have, I think this is also like the Dane in me, the solidarity part that keeps coming back up. For me, it's never been about trying to sell hard and make as much profit as possible. It's about creating a good product that people really enjoy using and that brings benefit to customers. And the reason why I started the whole thing in the beginning was because I couldn't find anything that I could afford or was easy to set up.
Yeah.
For me, it's not about that. It's about creating a good product, and that reflects in our pricing model. We have always done it different. We are the only one in the industry actually doing this, where we charge you for the usage only. So go sign up, and you get all the features for free from day one. You can use everything that Facebook uses. You get all of that. There's no like enterprise plan or anything like that.
Yep.
You get everything. And then you just pay per minute or per text or whatever you use. And of course, as you scale, the more you buy, we have a little bit of discount for that, but we try not to make too much. We try to really democratize this product so everyone can be. So for that reason, we have still customers with startups with 2 employees, and we have some with 5,000. And they use the same product and the same features, all of them. So I can't say there's any...
So you can grow with, they can grow with your services.
Exactly, yeah. And there's no like fee per user. I use the analogy with the utilities. You don't pay for lights or water per user. You pay for what you actually use. So why would you do that with your phone system? It's just you didn't used to do that back in the days. You remember when you just paid per minute? It's a lot cheaper to pay per minute, by the way. It's a good way to get people to pay for more than what they need. Is these all-in bundles? Yeah, and we're trying to not do that. So for that reason, there's no specific customer that we have. We have, of course, targets. We know what kind of customer is ideal for us. We know that we're going to spend the same amount of support on a customer with 2 employees as we do with one with 2,000 employees. It takes the same amount of man hours to have that kind of customer. So obviously there are certain customers that are better and more profitable for us. And those are the ones that we target our content towards and make sure that we are available or we pop up when they're searching for us.
Okay, thank you. How did you get from small, medium enterprises to Facebook, to Samsung, to that level? What converted those sales that meant that you could work with the biggest corporations in the country, in the world?
For all of them, they actually just signed up and were like, oh, that's cool. And then when we saw that pop up, they just signed up. And it's typically a smaller division within those companies that need it for a project or something like that. But then we have a foot in and we are able to go to them and say, hey, you really liked the service, huh? Didn't you? And they were like, yeah, we did. That was really cool, very easy to use. Can you get us in touch with your IT team or whoever is in charge for your corporate phone service? And they're always happy to do that because they really liked what they already had. So why wouldn't they spread that within their organization? So we're able to set up meetings with them and demo it. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But we have some of the big ones that have been with us for 5, 6, 7 years now. And yeah, like Citibank and Netflix and those ones keep coming back for certain. I think Netflix is not a corporate phone service with us, but they keep coming back to use us as for campaigns for different shows that they're releasing, and there's different ways that they need phone service for those things.
So something which is a reoccurring conversation on this show is about sales. Now, sales is the lifeblood of any business. You need to convert leads, and we've talked a little bit about your marketing strategies using SEO and various things. Did you employ salespeople straight away? Was that part of the development of Telzio? Like, how have you developed your sales strategy?
I wish I had. Let me say it like that. This is one of the main things I've learned, that when I start my next startup, which I will eventually one day, gonna have a co-founder who's the sales guy. And it's something we didn't have and we weren't focused about. Like I said earlier, it's been about product, it's been about customer experience all the way. And it's probably also why we're taking the long road. We could probably have grown faster if we had been focused on sales in the beginning. But I think we also wouldn't have had the same product. We haven't had the opportunity to create what we have today. But yeah, it's definitely something that I wish I had done. I think the first full-time salesperson joined us 2 or 3 years in. She's still with us today, by the way.
Right.
And yeah, it was something that and actually up until a year or two ago that we haven't really focused much on. Now we have a full-on department for sales with lots of sales reps, but still only doing inbound sales, meaning that we still just answer the phone when people call us. We're not trying to do any like cold calling or anything
Cold
like
calling?
that.
You don't do anything like that?
None. It's all word of mouth and yeah, SEO. So when people find our website, and of course when they sign up for trial, we'll reach out to them and make sure that they are off to a good start and that we get what they need. But yeah, we don't do any of the other ones. We are lucky that we have a crazy conversion rate, over I think 50 or 60% of the ones that sign up for trial. Right. That talks to the product itself. It sells it. So for us, we're really more focused about optimizing, getting people onto our website, but also optimizing that funnel. So when they are on our website, that they click on that trial button, that free trial, because when they actually see how good it is, it's easy for us to sell.
Amazing. So you mentioned about people that you've had for a number of years. How have you managed to keep talent, whether it's on the coding side or the operations or sales and marketing? How have you been able to keep your really valuable employees?
I think it's really about giving people a place they're happy to work at. And it sounds simple, but it's for me, I always had this philosophy of this thing in the back of my mind that I want to make this the place where they look back later in their lives and they said, I really liked working at that place. That was a good place to work. I have that myself when I worked at Denmark's Radio, big media corporation in Denmark. Then that was a great place to work, and for so many different reasons. But I want my employees to have that experience and look back and say, this was where I really enjoyed being, and let's stand out. And we actually only have, I think today, we only have had one employee leave us for another job. And that was really because he wanted to move back to Milwaukee and be with his girlfriend. And back then we didn't do remote work. Now we are actually only 4 people back in Los Angeles, and everyone else is remote. Like the whole team is all over the world now. But back then we were like trying to keep our culture and startup, and we didn't know how to work with the remote workers and all that stuff. That's something that we learned. But yeah, it's really, for me, it's about giving them that. And there's many ways you can do that. Of course, we're trying to hire really talented people and pay top of market, making sure that there's no payment reason or like salary reason why people would leave us. That's one thing that you can do. But at the same time, you just want to hire people that are autonomous. I hate managing, for example. There's nothing worse for me than to tell people what to do, and then even worse is follow up on it. So I need to hire people that either can pick things out of my brain, which some of them can for some reason, and or at least are so engaged and really want to build whatever they're building or do whatever they're doing, that they're pretty much just self-running and self-sustaining, and we just have daily meetings to, of course, make sure that everyone's aligned. But for me, it's about finding those people, and when you give people that freedom to also just go run with it and do whatever they want, they grow and they enjoy themselves. They get much better at their work.
So are those employees, would you say that they are entrepreneurial like you, or are they more employees that want to have the security of a job?
Some of them are entrepreneurial, and those are the ones that are in charge of different departments, the ones that really have that mindset. And then there are others that don't, and really just do a really good job at what they're good at or what their position is. But they still are so excited about doing that and so excited about working with what they're working with that it's almost the same. They don't necessarily need to be entrepreneurial and want to build a business, but they still have that urge to work with whatever they're in their field, that it's a hobby to them, so they can't stop doing it.
Who looks after the finances? Is it you or your girlfriend?
My wife. Yeah, we've got
my wife. Okay,
I
didn't want to assume.
We got married eventually, but no, that's her and our operations manager. I am absolutely not good with that kind of stuff. They're running the business. I'm running the technology and the creative parts, the brands, and all those kind of things. But that's not me.
Do you have an exit plan? Do you have where you would actually step away from the business?
You have to have one when you take in investors, whether that's big money or it's your friends and family. So there's always been a plan. There's always been a goal, even though it changes over time. I would say right now we are creating an actual plan, because we are eventually going to take in real VC money. We are at the point where now we have validated the product and we have an actual business. It's not just a startup. Now we need money to accelerate the growth that we've been on so far. And for that, of course, you need an exit plan. But for me, it's always been about these little small goals, these little achievable things, that little stepping stones until the next. And it's not so much about, I want to be a billionaire and retire when I'm 40. I'll have to hurry up then. But yeah, that's not what it's about. But at the same time, I also don't want to do this forever. I have a new business idea every single day. And I also at some point need to own a hot dog stand. I can't be doing this forever.
I love that. And what you'll find is entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. Is what, if they're not running their business, they're thinking about another one. And actually, a friend of mine ran a podcast successfully for a number of years, which was called Run With It, which was Ethan Jenny, if you're listening. And his podcast was, so we've got successful entrepreneurs on the show that talk about another idea that they think can be successful and they just can't do it at the moment. And I thought it was a really interesting concept, because a lot of entrepreneurial people are, sometimes we call it over here shiny penny syndrome, but shiny object syndrome, because you're always thinking about the next thing that could be massive and could be. So I think we all suffer from that slightly. I've had to rein back how many things I do, just purely because I needed to get not better, but I needed to grow the businesses rather than spreading myself too thinly. So I've really narrowed down what I do just to be really good. And a mentor of mine said, this is a Bruce Lee quote, the guy who used to do martial arts, and he said he never worries about the person that knows how to do 100 kicks. He's more worried about the person that has practiced 100 times one kick. Yeah, and I just have learned from that over the years that actually narrowing down what you do and just really targeting and honing on those, that's when success comes, because you've got more time and more experience and more knowledge on how to grow those businesses. So I think we all suffer from a little bit of shiny object syndrome.
Definitely. And that can be hard. Like, it's something you have to learn and really be strict about and tell yourself loud.
Yes. You have to give yourself a stern word.
And I was lucky my wife was good at telling me that.
Well, something you mentioned right at the start, we're going to come on to the quickfire questions in a minute. You mentioned earlier on about ADD. So I want to ask you, is that your superpower?
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't find out that I had that diagnosis until a couple of years ago, really. When I was a kid, that wasn't even a thing. Yeah, they had just discovered ADHD, and that was the ones that can't stay still and run backwards up the walls. And I'm not like that, but I always was told that, he's really good at what he's interested in, but everything else, he's good at it, but he's not interested and he doesn't get it done. I think I stopped doing homework when I was 10 completely. It's just and I hope my kids will never hear this.
Don't worry, I'll take it out of the edit. It's fine.
So the thing is, like, that wasn't a thing, but I found out when actually that the employee we were talking about earlier, that one of the first salesperson that got on our team, she was like, why is it that this tax reporting of whatever it was is like 2 months overdue and it'll take you 20 minutes to do it when you can spend all night sitting coding on that feature? Like, maybe you should take this test. And she gave me one of these like online ADD tests, and I was it was just full score. Like, I won the lottery. So I went out and actually went to 3 different psychiatrists because I don't trust the medical system in the US. So I went to 3 different ones, and they were like, yeah, you are off the charts. And it's my superpower for sure. The thing is, I have over the years, not knowing it, learned what it is that I'm good at and how to hire people and get people around me that are good at the things I'm not at. Yeah. So that I can focus on being extra good, because what I do is I go down a rabbit hole and I become really good at the things I'm interested in. I will spend literally, I'm talking straight up, 48, 50 hours without sleep or barely going to the bathroom, just diving into something just to learn and know everything about it. And that's the superpower, right?
So, that's... Peter, what's the last thing that you learned? Something recent that you've gone down that rabbit hole with?
I should almost show you the studio I'm in right now. We just invested close to $500,000 in studio equipment, and now we're doing virtual TV productions because we need to create content for Telzio, for SEO. So we have a 5-camera virtual production studio that can render in Unreal Engine and Ximetry live in real time, 4K. So I had to learn that to do that because we don't have anyone on our team. Hey, that's the last,
Amazing. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick-fire questions. They don't need a quick-fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
To start Telzio and stay with it.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Before you react, stay calm. Be calm.
Yeah, control your emotions. It's
Exactly. Just whatever it is, like, just breathe and wait. Don't reply right away or whatever it is that you're doing. Be calm.
Yeah, it's a really good piece of advice that I think some entrepreneurs don't like. Being able to manage your emotions when, especially in stressful situations,
Yeah.
is a real skill in
Exactly.
itself. I would 100% agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Who's helped you most in your career?
Oh, my wife. I don't even know why I'm thinking about that. For sure. Yeah, she's a badass.
And she met you as a DJ, did she?
Yeah, she met me when, right at the end of my career. And when she found out, oh, he also codes, that's when she locked it in, I think. But yeah.
And just on that, on the coding, so did you do that as a kid as well? Was that something that was part of your upbringing?
Yeah, I started when I was 6, and I actually launched my first website when I was 14, which grew, and I sold as a real company when I was 18. So I've been
Wow,
coding my whole life. Yeah.
that's amazing. Tell me about a regret that you have.
I don't regret a lot. Honestly, I have to think hard about this because I try to only do what I'm interested in and what makes me happy, and so I don't have a lot of regrets. Everything that I've done, even like I said earlier, I've been kicked out of apartments, and it's not like shit doesn't happen to me, but everything at some point leads to where I am today, and I'm happy for that.
Is there someone that you've spoken to that badly that you wish you hadn't, or something like that?
That I wish I hadn't spoken to.
Not spoken to, but spoken to potentially badly, or
in that way. Yeah, I mean, there's always things. I regret that I had a falling out with I wouldn't even call it falling out. It wasn't really, but an artist I worked with for a long time was a really close friend of mine, and we lost touch after I moved to LA. I saw him recently for the first time in 10 years, where he has now become a director and had his first movie released and was a premiere in Hollywood. So he invited me. He actually called me after 10 years, and I was really happy about that. So I regret that. That's actually thank you for that.
what are you most proud of?
I would say my kids. I've had twin babies 20 months ago, and it's
23 months ago.
20 months ago, yeah.
20
So
months
they're
ago.
pretty young still, and they're just
That's
starting
busy.
to talk, and I'm exactly, and I'm just so proud of them. My wife speaks Chinese to them, I speak Danish to them, and they hear English. They speak 3 languages already, and like the words they know, and they will translate between us. So I'm proud of that for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What does legacy mean to you?
It's about just people thinking that I'm happy I met that person. That's really, for me, is important. That they, when they think of you, that they're happy that they met me, for example. That's to me a legacy.
Yeah, I think that's what we all hope for more than anything. And that's all of our questions, but I've actually got something else which I want to ask before we finish. Your move from Denmark to LA, as a cultural move, that's quite an extreme one, with Denmark and their culture and their society and how they live their lives versus the American dream. How was the move when you moved over to LA?
I would say it wasn't that dramatic because we were just busy. We had just launched that company, and we're just like all focused on that. I would say the culture is not extremely different. There's obviously a big in certain ways in the U.S., but Los Angeles is not that big, that different from Denmark. It's a somewhat liberal mindset that people have here, and at the same time, I get bummed out when I see homeless people everywhere, and the solidarity that just doesn't exist here. That's, I think, the biggest difference for me, and I don't like that. But on the other hand, there's good weather. We definitely don't have that in Denmark. For me, it's never been a thing about like a goal to move here. I'm just here because my wife grew up here. This is a bigger market, a bigger chance for us to grow this business. But eventually, we will probably move to Denmark. We already have a vacation home we try to go to. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And lastly, where can people find you? You've got to give your website, as it's such an SEO magnet. But where would, if you want people to find you or ask questions, where can they find you?
So me personally, peterschroeder.com. There's links to all my social media, my email address, everything's there. peterschroeder.com. And then Telzio, Telz as in zebra, IO.com is our website for our business, and please go sign up for that trial.
Absolutely. I hope you get some leads from this conversation. Look, Peter, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed hearing your story and what you're doing with Telzio, and I hope it keeps on growing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was enjoyable. I really enjoyed this one. That's good.
Good. Excellent. So that was Peter. What an interesting guy. DJ for 10 years, entrepreneur, tech pioneer, really interesting guy. Very almost like humble beginnings, it feels like, in Denmark with what he did, and be able to extend that into his businesses, starting a music label, very entrepreneurial from quite an early age. And then Telzio, which is just a really phenomenal business. I'm really surprised that the strategies that he used, that this SEO methodology as a means of advertising. We all know it, we all see value in it, but a lot of people take shortcuts. They do the ads because you get returns from advertising as well. But I feel massive respect for him as a business and as a businessman, that he actually went with it and just said, look, we're in this for the long game. We're going to get our business, move it forward. And as you can hear, worked with small, medium enterprises, now Facebook, Netflix, Samsung. Super impressive that he's been able to grow that. And I wanted to touch on the ADD stuff because I think it's really interesting. A lot of people now say that these ADHD, ADD, autism, ASD is their superpower, and that's what's been able to make them successful. And for so long, they might have even felt that they were wrong for having those conditions, but actually there's some massive advantages for having these sorts of conditions. And you all know that mental health is incredibly important to me, and I mention it quite a lot with my guests as well. And so I think that's super important that we do flag those things and talk about those things, that if you're out there and you're listening or watching this and you've just been diagnosed, or you've been diagnosed a while and you can't see an outlet for you, whether it's in traditional education, whether it's more in creative arts, whether it's in technology, there is a space for you, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner and you've got this and you feel like it's holding you back. It actually can propel your business forward. So I wanted to mention that at the end. And interestingly also that he didn't go for investment, couldn't get investment, as he said, but now he's at that point where he's looking for that investment to really build the business and scale the business. I think that's super interesting. So it just shows you, if you're being, that incubators are really good to get that business going. And sometimes you don't need the investor money straight away. Sometimes it's better to bootstrap it and build that business on solid foundations, that when you're ready to scale and really go the business forward, propel the business forward, then you can actually do that. So I think it's super interesting that he's gone that route and got a lot of, I think he was a fantastic guest. Hopefully you've enjoyed that as well. And I hope you think I asked some testing questions. We talked about the USB, talked about exit plans. I think it is important that we talk about these sorts of things, because these are the things that you're going to get as listeners and watchers that can actually really help your business and really propel your business. And therefore, these things need to be talked about. And hopefully you've enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed that. I think he was a great guest. Really interesting guy, interesting stories. So thank you very much for joining me today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And on to the next one.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.